Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So you guys have heard me make this pitch. I've made this pitch a few times, essentially saying even though we may disagree on these ideas of policy and how this world should be arranged and the way the resources should be distributed, let's say we have substantive disagreements and earnest disagreements where we bump heads on that stuff. Fair enough. I don't like Donald Trump. Let's say you do like Donald Trump. Fair enough. Can we at least agree that corruption should not be part of our government? Meaning that is not something we should tolerate. If we are having a substantive conversation and argument about how our society should be arranged, that argument, that conversation should not be prodded on with cash. I should not have people sticking money in my G-string and then putting me out there to perform. And my performance, I'm pretending as if I'm this, uncorrupted thing when ultimately I'm dirty as dirty can be. I'm saying that should not be our politics. We shouldn't accept that in politics, and we certainly shouldn't accept it in our intelligence services. This story came out today. FBI Deputy Director faces congressional committees on Comey and Clinton. Democrats may take a certain posture about things, meaning I understand that Republicans go on witch hunts, and I understand that some of the stuff they go on can be, head up their ass and just doing it for purely political gamesmanship. But a broken clock is right twice a day. And this is one of those cases where the Republicans have a point. They have a damn good point. And this is one of those things where Democrats continuously say, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. And in this very specific case, they actually have a point. What took place during the Obama era, during the Obama administration, with regards to that handling of the Clinton emails and all this other stuff, was dirty to its core. It was dirty to its core. Loretta Lynch bumping into Bill Clinton, accidentally bumping into Bill Clinton, having a conversation with their grandkids. Do you honestly believe that Bill Clinton was having a conversation about his grandkids when Loretta Lynch was a person governing whether or not they were going to go after his wife? You believe that Bill Clinton, presidential stain, Mr. I did not have sexual relations with that woman, that guy. You honestly believe that that guy, with his wife in jeopardy, with his political career in jeopardy in the sense, or I should say political reputation, you believe that the only thing he talked about was his grandkids? Yeah, I don't believe that. Comey giving testimony saying that he felt some kind of way because his testimony or the way that they wanted him to talk about the case, Loretta Lynch wanted him to talk about the case, was in line with the Hillary campaign. Now, this is a mind-blowing revelation, and I don't quite understand why this didn't get more attention than it deserved. The political apparatus, meaning the government of the United States, is just a bus. That's all it is. It gets you from point A to point B. There is no one in this country, regardless of people calling themselves the governing class or whatever else, they're not guaranteed or they're not endowed with some kind of special thing that gives them some kind of prudence or some kind of legitimacy to taking that bus. It's not theirs. You get into that bus driver's seat based upon the public voting you into that bus driver's seat. And I'm trying to be very specific here. The people who drive that bus, those are the political parties. But none of the parties have claim to the bus. The public chooses. It's representative government. They call it a representative government for a reason. You choose people to represent your interests. It is a problem. It is an immense problem when you have two candidates, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, and three, Jill Stein and Gary Johnson, vying for that office. None of them have any claim to that office. I don't give a shit that Hillary Clinton was calling herself inevitable. None of them have a claim to the office. All of them are vying for the office. If elements of the government itself have taken a posture, and in taking a posture have made the choice that it is going to change legal realities to coincide with the things that one of the campaigns is saying, that is a problem. That is a problem. This was a criminal case. This was an FBI criminal case, or at the very least it was supposed to be an FBI criminal case. And they're changing the language of it to conform to the things that Hillary Clinton was saying, even though Hillary Clinton was lying through her teeth about the severity of this case. It gets worse. This is what I mean. FBI Deputy Director faces congressional committees on Comey and Clinton. Let's see. FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, was grilled for more than 16 hours over his former boss James Comey's handling of both the probe into Russian interference in 2016 elections and the investigation into Hillary Clinton's use of the private email server. It was reported. McCabe faced the House Intelligence Committee this week to answer questions regarding his interactions and correspondence with Comey before President Clinton fired the former FBI director in May. The deputy director said Comey shared details of conversations he had with Trump. Now, I have to be honest, all of this gets a little weird. The point I want to make here is, this is immensely squirrely. What I'm about to go over, it doesn't smell right. It doesn't smell right at all. If the situation was reversed, Democrats would be screaming at the top of their lungs about corruption taking place. And those Democrats who find themselves to be on the same wavelength will be making the same argument that right now the Republicans are making of, wait a minute, this doesn't smell right. This looks immensely corrupt to me. And looking at it, it does look immensely corrupt to me. It looks as if the FBI had been politicized. That's what it looks like to me. It looks like the FBI, the Attorney General, for the most part, is politicized. Now, Obama put an Attorney General up. Obama is not going to put anybody up that's going to go against his interests, and anybody who he puts up is full well going to understand his interests. Meaning there is nobody that he's going to put up that's going to okay going after Hillary Clinton. Why would they do it? And what it seems like is that's exactly what took place. That there was a pressure, be it implicit or explicit, to not go after Hillary Clinton. Let's keep going. The Republicans are essentially probing into this very specific area. I mean, the committee essentially investigated, interrogated the guy for 16 hours, including on this idea of how Comey was handling the emails, the Clinton emails, and the Trump dossier. McCabe also faced House Judiciary and Oversight Committees on Thursday regarding the investigation into Hillary Clinton's email server and what was characterized as a tense exchange. Now, just let me go for a ball for the moment. While the Intelligence Committee also fired off questions about FBI's handling of the dossier on Trump, compiled by former British spy Christopher Steele, some Republicans were reportedly dissatisfied with McCabe's answers. McCabe also faced questions on House Judiciary and Oversight Committees on Thursday regarding his investigation into the Hillary Clinton email server and what was characterized as a tense exchange. His testimony failed to convince Republicans on the committee that the FBI had not shown Clinton preferential treatment in a decision not to pursue criminal charges against her, CNN reported. Representative Jim Jordan said, "Everything I've heard reinforces what I believed before." McCabe appeared before the committee. Democratic Representative Raja, I can't pronounce that last name, of the House Oversight Committee disagreed, telling CNN that the focus of the Clinton was a distraction from Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election. The amazing part about this is both of them might be right, both of them might be wrong. The first part, though, is this is not a distraction. This is something that took place. You're acting as if something that took place that looks extremely squirrely was in no way squirrely. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. We as Democrats want you to purely just focus on Republicans, on Trump and Russia, even though we've materialized no evidence that there was any collusion at all between Trump and Russia. We still need you to focus on that conspiracy theory, though. We don't want you to look at anything revolving Hillary Clinton or the Democratic Party. He has a dog in the hunt. Of course he's going to say it. It's politics. It's a party that's seeking to protect itself. So yes, he's going to say that. But to the same degree, though, if we're being honest, Republicans also have a vested interest in kind of throwing up the stuff of, well, wait a minute, we need to look at the Clinton case in order to kind of to obfuscate the stuff, to throw dirt into the water. It doesn't necessarily mean that both of them are wrong, though. Republicans can very well have a point, and I actually think they actually have a point. They've hit upon something that I actually agree with. Now, the reason I agree with this is, let's go to the next story. And all of these stories are related. So, FBI gave Clinton email investigation special status, deputy director's email shows. Now, when you step into this one, let's see. Give me 1 second. All right. FBI gave Clinton email investigation special status,
Shortly
deputy
before
director.
last year's election, FBI
Email shows. Shortly before last year's election, FBI Director Andrew McCabe wrote an email on his official government account stating that Hillary Clinton email probe had been given special status according to documents released Wednesday. McCabe's October 23, 2016 email to press officials and the FBI said the probe was under the control of a small group of high-ranking people at the FBI's headquarters in Washington. As I now know, the decision was made to investigate it at headquarters with a small team, McCabe wrote in the email. He said he had no input when the Clinton email investigation started in 2015 while he was serving as the assistant director in charge of the FBI's Washington office. Let's see. Here we are. All right. There's a very particular point on this that I want to read. I just need to find it. FBI officials Wednesday night refused to answer what McCabe meant by calling the Clinton email probe a special, or why it was restricted to a small team at headquarters when it began. We don't have anything to add to the documents that were released, Bureau spokeswoman Carl Crady wrote The Hill. Let's see. Where is it? Comey originally drafted a statement declaring Clinton had been grossly negligent in handling classified emails, a term that would support a felony charge. FBI officials edited the statement before it was released, July 2016, to simply say that she was extremely careless and should not be criminally charged. Comey also disclosed that this spring he originally ordered by then Attorney General Loretta Lynch not to call the Clinton email case an investigation, but used the more politically demure term, a matter. Sessions this week said that he's reviewing Republicans' concerns but won't be pressured into naming a special counsel unless certain legal requirements are met. It's like you hired Jeff Sessions to be your attorney general, and this guy is just out to lunch. McCabe wrote the email to the FBI press officials to try to address questions from a Wall Street Journal reporter on October 2016, reported that McCabe's wife, Jill McCabe, received hundreds of thousands of dollars in campaign contributions from Hillary Clinton's ally and Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe when she ran for Virginia Senate in 2015. At the time, the FBI's ongoing criminal investigation into both Clinton's email server and McAuliffe's fundraising. Charges were never filed in either case. That's not a little weird? That's not a little weird? Like, even if you want to say this is purely a coincidence that the guy's wife was getting her hands greased with a bunch of cash from a direct connection in this way to Hillary Clinton, meaning you have Democratic operatives paying off this guy's wife who's running the campaign, and it's just so happened that the guy whose wife is getting paid off comes around and says, hey, let's call this a matter. Let's call this a matter. And I'm sorry, not let's call this a matter. Let's change this from something that would constitute a felony charge to something that wouldn't constitute a felony charge. And you have this other added weirdness of this one. Let's see. Let's try to find this one too. Comey drafted statement clearing Clinton before her interview. Comey hadn't even interviewed Hillary Clinton before he cleared her of the charges. How do you clear somebody of charges when you don't even interview the person who's the subject of the investigation itself? At that point, you're not the FBI, you're just the Federal Bureau of letting people off the hook. That entire primary, where Comey was kind of hanging as a specter behind the scenes, it was a farce. All of it was political theater. Comey had already made up his mind in that investigation. Before even talking to Hillary Clinton, he had already drafted the letter. This is bizarre. That's all I'm saying. You have a situation where one of the investigators pushed Comey to change his wording on it, changing the wording in the way that would have went from something that might have supported a felony charge to something that didn't support any charges at all. The guy who did that had his wife getting paid off by McAuliffe, and in this case Clinton, essentially Democratic operatives, when she was running for her particular campaign. I tend to believe that when people are getting bribed, those people are more likely to lean in the direction of the people who are bribing them. Meaning, in the same way that this woman is getting this money, are you telling me that he had no vested interest at all? He had no push. He had no push. You don't think that looks a little bad? Let's say for the moment that you give him the benefit of the doubt. Are you telling me that that doesn't look bad at all? His wife is getting cash, and he turns around and for the most part plays a role in letting Clinton off the hook in this email server thing, and then you find out that there wasn't really even an investigation. Ultimately, Comey had let her off the hook before he even had the investigation in the first place. And to make matters even worse, pretended as if this thing was ongoing and everything else. They never had an investigation. That's what this boils down to. Anybody else would have been thrown in prison and the key would have been thrown away. And in one instance after the next, it seems like these guys are just above the law. That seems a little weird to me. The President of the United States, whose wife is under investigation, is talking to the Attorney General. That exact same Attorney General is telling the FBI, the person in charge of the investigation, or the FBI at this point, to change the language in which he was using to describe the case, the more in line that language of the Hillary Clinton campaign. That by itself is mind-blowing. Like I said, neither party has claimed to that seat. This governmental apparatus is not necessarily supposed to work in anybody's favor. It's supposed to be agnostic about this stuff. So the idea that you're changing the language of something, and mind you, when I'm saying changing the language, it's one thing if you say this is a criminal investigation, this is what this is. I'm recounting when I'm talking to the public. I am just telling the public exactly what this is. It is a separate case altogether when you're changing your language. And the Attorney General, who was appointed by the President of the United States, who's a Democrat, who also appointed the person who's being investigated, is pushing the guy to change what he's telling the public to give a false impression of what's taking place. A false impression that more aligns itself with the false impression that one of the campaigns is giving. This is immensely problematic. That's all I'm saying. This is immensely problematic. However you want to look at this, ultimately this looks like corruption to me. And the idea that Democrats are saying there's nothing to see here, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, the only thing you need to focus on is the Russian investigation, even though there's no link whatsoever connecting Trump to Russia. One is a conspiracy theory. The other one, they're clear dots. And it's easy to connect those dots because the information is in the public. Like, this is not one of those things where people are like, we think this takes place, or we think this took place. Or, this stuff is coming out in establishment magazines. This was The Hill, Politico, and the other one I believe is the Daily Mail or something like that. These are mainstream journals. I mean, the Daily Mail, I don't think it was called the Daily Mail. At least not this one. This is, what is this? What is this? Daily News, The Hill, and Politico. This is not some fringe magazines. This stuff is in the air. People understand that this is the stuff that took place. These are the things that these guys were doing. And yes, it seems like they were politicizing the institution of the intelligence services. Whether you want to say that they were attacking Donald Trump, whether you want to say that, you know, they had contingency plans and all this other stuff, I don't even need to take those steps. Ultimately, just looking at the bare bones of what's taking place, just the flat fact reality of what's taking place in the testimony that's given, they were showing favoritism. Didn't even do a goddamn investigation while at the same time pretending to the public that they were doing an investigation. I mean, this is amazing. Like, even in the Uranium One deal, the part that they completely left out and that the FBI didn't necessarily go into was this idea of these guys were trying to pay off the president, Bill Clinton, in order to try to make connections and get closer to his wife. They dropped hundreds of millions of dollars into the Clinton Foundation, not to mention giving Bill Clinton $500,000 into his pocket. I mean, come on. Come on. Are you telling me that that's not corruption at its finest? This stinks. That's my point. This stinks. It looks like the intelligence services were politicized. That's what it looks like to me. If you want to make an argument that you need to have a case to go with Donald Trump and the special prosecutor, whatever. I don't care. I think it's bogus. You haven't shown me anything in an entirety of a year where you've been screaming about this at the top of your lungs. So until I see something for it, I disbelieve this. But whatever. How are you going to make that case, though, that very specific argument, and then turn around and say, there's nothing to see here with the Clinton thing and everything else is an obfuscation? If you care about corruption, you care about corruption. And the last thing you should want is your intelligence services to be politicized in the way that it seems like they're being politicized. If I get caught with a joint, they're putting me in prison. Or they're putting me in jail at the very least, and they're going to fuck up my life. Hillary Clinton is trading in state secrets and is literally flagrantly breaking the law, whether you want to call it campaign finance, whether you want to talk about the sketchiness of monetizing the State Department with the Clinton Foundation. This is stuff that's in the public at this point. This is not something that is wild-eyed conspiracy theory. This is in the public. And the one investigation that they were focusing on, I would argue that there's more corruption in the Clinton Foundation looking through WikiLeaks, but whatever. I mean, the part where the people are saying, hey, you need to shut Chelsea Clinton up because Chelsea is going to blow this deal, or that these people are giving us money because these are professional people, meaning they're giving us money because they want to get shit done. They can put that money anywhere. They put that money to the Clinton Foundation because they want influence. I believe there's more meat in the Clinton Foundation if you're looking for something to actually go after on. But whatever. The one investigation that they were supposed to be doing, they weren't even doing. They weren't even doing. And then the person who was part of that case was getting, his wife was getting her hand greased. But in no way should we look at the man behind the curtain. Everything needs to be focused on the conspiracy theory of Trump and Russia. Leave the Democratic Party out. Leave the Democratic Party corruption out. Leave what was taking place, the potential politicizing of the intelligence services. Leave all that stuff out. Trump and Russia. Trump and Nazis. Trump and sexist. Trump and Russia again. I'll leave it at that, man. I don't... Look, you guys already know how I feel about Donald Trump. Can't stand his ass. I don't like Democrats obfuscating. And the last thing I want is my intelligence services, or the intelligence services of this country, being used as political hatchets to go after opponents who they don't necessarily like, or who don't necessarily want in that office. That should not be something that anybody is okay with. We can disagree on the politics of all sorts of stuff. You can think I am too far to the left. I may think you're too far to the right. I may think you're batshit crazy. You may think I am a lunatic. Fair enough. Fair enough. But can we at least, in a certain amount of earnestness and a certain amount of integrity, meet on this even playing field of we should not have corruption in our government in this way? And at the very least, we should be able to rally together on ideas of being against corruption. I don't give a shit if you're a Trump fan. I don't give a shit if you're a Democratic fan. At the very least, you should be on this bandwagon, at least having a basic, bare bones amount of integrity of saying, I don't want the intelligence services of the United States to be used as political hatchets. If I am going to be under investigation, I want the same lens to be used for people who are supposed to be in power and authority. I mean, this is fucking amazing. Obama was using the Espionage Act to put people in prison who was releasing waste, fraud, and abuse of the United States government. Hillary Clinton is using a server in her basement because she didn't want the public to see what the fuck she was doing in the State Department. And they don't even do an investigation in earnest. Jeff Sessions has apparently started to look into this. I am not a fan of people losing their freedom, so don't misunderstand me. I do not like the way we do our prisons in this country. We have 5% of the world's population, with 25% of that population in our prisons. But fairness is fairness. How are you going to have two sets of laws? You know, one set for the Clintons and one set for everybody else. Fairness is fairness. If you're going to go after corruption, go after corruption. If you believe that the case against Donald Trump, this conspiracy theory, is so strong that it requires a special prosecutor, how on earth can you look any human being in the face and with a straight face says, yes, I believe there's enough evidence to warrant an investigation into Donald Trump by a special prosecutor, but in no way do I believe there's enough evidence to go to do the same thing for Hillary Clinton. I'll leave it at that. I don't want to beat a dead horse, and I think, yeah, this has gone way, way massively too long. So I will leave it at that. Just be fair. Just be fair. That's all I'm saying. I don't care who your candidate is. I don't care who your choice is. I don't care who the person you want into the office. Can we at least agree on a bare... I'll say one last thing, and I'll end it on this. Aren't you sick of hacks? Like, when you're looking at Rachel Maddow on MSNBC, when you're looking at Joanne Reid on MSNBC, when you're looking at Hannity, or you're looking at some of these guys who they bring on MSNBC or CNN, just hacks. Just hacks. They're a canned statement. They don't necessarily have any values, not from the standpoint of these kind of humanistic values or anything else. It purely depends on the party. I've seen lefties, people who consider themselves lefties, get out and explain why it was okay for Obama to drone strike all of these different countries and why it was okay for him to murder all of these different people in these countries. Many of the people, the overwhelming majority, were civilians. And the lefty would get out and make that argument. Do you think he gets out and make that argument? Do you think if George Bush was doing the exact same thing, that he would make that argument that it's perfectly okay for George Bush to get out there and murder civilians in the way that George Bush was murdering civilians? Or do you think he would be against it? What I'm getting at is, if you're going to be against something with one, you should be against something for the other. I don't care your party. I don't care your labels. I don't care how you identify yourself. At the very least, we should be able to look at corruption in the government and say, this is a fundamental problem. And this is something that does not need to be a part of our government. And part of this also means cash, by the way. I also mean this from the standpoint of cash. So I will leave it at that. If I am a preacher, this is my sermon. I believe corruption is a big fucking deal. I believe this kind of trust buster thing, like a Roosevelt, a Teddy Roosevelt, I think it's required. I think if people are going to get behind something, even if we can't agree on everything, can we at least agree that let's have a morsel of integrity when we're looking at the things that the parties and the politicians and the people who are running these things are doing, and not bind ourselves to a particular party or politician in this way, where whatever that person does, we give it a pass. And yes, I know I'm going to get hit in the balls with this idea of Bernie Sanders, but for the most part, I try to be fair and earnest when I'm evaluating either Trump or Sanders or any of these other politicians. All I'm asking is to deal with this stuff from a level of integrity. Unless you want the internet to turn into the same hacks that they have on MSNBC and these other networks, can we at least just agree on that basic fundamental thing? I'm not in favor of corruption. So I'll leave it at that. This went massively long. I apologize for going long. I hope I made the point, and I hope I didn't necessarily belabor this particular point. All I'm saying is this smells. It smells immensely bad. I don't care how much Democrats scream about, pay attention to Trump and Russia. You can't have it both ways. If corruption is a problem for one, and you're finding situations where it seems like there's overt corruption on the other, you should investigate the overt corruption in the other. And Jeff Sessions needs to step in and do his goddamn job and stop trying to lock up stoners. Just saying. Just saying. Alright guys, if you enjoy the content, feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support the Patreon. Thanks guys.